What's going on, everyone? Coach Aaron here, back with another video to help you dominate the platform. Today we're going to go over what are the best shoes that you should wear for deadlifts. So let's get right to it. Alrighty, welcome back my powerlifting people. I hope you didn't miss me too much since the last video. I've been a little bit busy working on all my coaching. I've had some new clients that started on with the unlimited coaching option I have, and also some people wanting just the weekly programming. I've had people ask me questions about the free programs I have. For all this stuff, if you want to look into it more, I have the link to my website below. In addition, on this channel, I have videos that go over my free programs to break down how you can go find them, why I programmed the way I did, what adjustments you can make, all that kind of stuff. So you can always check out my playlist for free programs if you want to look into that. But today we're going to finish off this series of what are the best shoes that you should wear. We already did the squat, we did the bench press, so now we have to finish off with the deadlift. So again, if you want to go check out the videos, go back to the videos and check for the one on squat and the one on bench press, and you can always see the best shoes that I recommend for those lifts. But this video we're going to be focusing on the deadlift, which is the easiest one of the three, so it shouldn't be too long. So basically my thoughts on whether you should be wearing a heeled shoe or a flat shoe for the deadlift, and my estimate for what would be best for most powerlifters. I would say about 99% or maybe even more would do best from the flat shoes for deadlift. Very few people would actually maybe have some kind of benefit from the raised heel for the deadlift. There's a few different reasons for that. One, obviously, by having the raised heel, even if it is just a 3/4 inch raised heel, you are raising yourself up by that amount, which means you are raising yourself away from the bar by that amount. So not only do you have to pull the bar now a bigger range of motion, which we don't necessarily want, but also your starting position is going to be in a lower position in reference to your shins. That can also have a difference on the joint angles. So since you have to go down further now because the bar is lower on your shins technically, then you may have a more closed hip joint. You may have to go into more flexion. And so then it can be harder for those muscles surrounding those hips in order to extend the hips and stand all the way up. Some people may feel it more in their quads because maybe they get some more knee flexion, and if they are stronger in their quads, they may feel like they're using their legs more. But it also just depends on whether you can get into a good starting position without pushing the bar forward, or maybe then you have to extend your knees really quick to get them out of the way so the bar can come up in that vertical bar path. So there's a little bit of issues there as far as technique, but in general, you're gonna have a longer range of motion, and you're gonna have the bar start lower on your shins, and you're probably gonna have a more closed off joint angles, either knee, hips, or both. In addition, because the heel is only in the back and not across the whole thing, that can maybe try and pitch you forward. The squat's a little bit different because you have the bar and most of the weight on your back. So with the weight on your back during the squat, you kind of like counter it by leaning forward a little bit to keep you over that midfoot. But in the deadlift, it is very difficult because it's a straight bar that goes in front of your shins, and so the weight wants to pull you forward, and then also the raised heel may want to push you forward. So now it's going to be very difficult to kind of counter all that by leaning back into the heel to stop it from going forward. And obviously there's a limit on how far back you can pull the bar because the bar cannot go through your shins. We're using a straight bar for deadlift. It's different than a trap bar that the weight would go around on your sides. And if you're going to use it for a wider stance, like for sumo, then when you start going into that wider stance and really start pushing out to the sides more rather than just pushing this straight down, then you may have the risk of basically rolling your ankle or rolling over because you are in a raised heel, so you can kind of like tip over and maybe slip or fall or something like that. So then there is some inherent risk with using the raised heel for sumo, which again, you probably never see. Maybe 99.9% of the time you'll never see it, but I have seen a couple people out there that have used a raised heel before for sumo, and then maybe a little bit more using the raised heel for conventional. If they come from weightlifting or maybe from CrossFit, then maybe they've just been using it as part of their WODs, or maybe they're used to using for the snatch and a clean and jerk, so they kind of feel comfortable kind of using that movement pattern for their conventional deadlift. And maybe in the short term, they would be stronger that way, or maybe they just feel more comfortable and they don't want to ruin their clean or their snatch pull. But the long term, and if they want to be dedicated to powerlifting and to getting their deadlift up as much as possible, then they'll benefit from making the switch to flat shoes. So that's why I'm saying, trying to play it safe here and say 99% of people, but maybe even 100% of people will benefit from the flat shoes. So we can always get rid of these. All right, so we'll go over some of the benefits with the flat shoe, or what you want to look for in a flat shoe and comparing different ones. And some of it is in relation to what we went over right now for the heeled, but basically the opposite of the heeled shoe is what you want with the flat shoe. So the first thing is you want to be as low as possible, which means you want as thin of a sole as possible. So there are some flat shoes that are mostly flat or maybe completely flat, but they all have a thick heel to it. So even though it is completely flat, your entire foot may be raised a quarter inch or half an inch or maybe 1 inch off the ground, which again is going to increase your range of motion because now you have to go down further in order to grab the bar. So we want to have as minimal of a sole as possible. You want basically trying to get as close to barefoot as possible. Since we can't be barefoot in competition, we want to get some kind of shoe that will get us as close to that as possible, which is why you see a lot of people wearing those deadlift slippers or ballet slippers, because they basically have next to no heel. So it kind of is like they're basically barefoot or in their socks with having the appropriate shoe for the competition. So here I like to use a wrestling shoe, which is really thin. There is still some heel to it, and maybe you can even take out the insole and make it even thinner, but it is pretty close to having basically like no sole in there. It is very thin, as I said. In addition, same to what we want for the squat, we also want with deadlift, which we want as hard of a sole as possible. So we don't want it to be squishy, that's going to make our force transfer from our foot through the shoe and into the ground inefficient, and also might mess with our balance, where if with too much weight, if it pushes down on one part of the sole, we don't want it to collapse and push us further into that angle, whether it's front, back, or to the side. So you want as hard of a sole as possible. So again, it's basically like you're not wearing a shoe, and the force from your foot that is going into the ground transfers through this material, this sole, with basically no loss in that energy. All right, and then when it comes to grip, if you are a conventional puller and you're basically have your feet directly underneath your hips, straight down, and you're pushing basically 100% straight down, then the grip doesn't really matter because you're not pushing forward, back, or to the side. So there's not going to be any slipping. You're just pushing straight down. And so you have the thin sole and the hard sole, you push straight down and you're good. But if you are a wider stance conventional puller that maybe pushes a little bit out to the sides, or for all you sumo pullers out there who are going to be wider, you're going to have some kind of force going out to the side and some kind of force going down. And then you want to make sure you have good grip. Similar to bench press, when we're focusing on our leg drive, we're going to have a lot of horizontal push as well as a little bit of the vertical push. In the sumo, you're going to have a little bit of that horizontal push going with a lot of that vertical push, and you don't want your shoes to slide out from you and slip and fall or like that. You don't want to hurt yourself. So you want to make sure that the shoe has good traction and it's got a good grip. This wrestling shoe here with the rubber sole, it's got a little bit of grooves and divots and bumps and stuff like that to help with gripping and help with that traction. But it can sometimes get slippery since it doesn't have a lot of different bumps and ridges to it. With a little bit of dust or baby powder or chalk, can get slippery. But the thing is with the rubber sole is that you just want to wash it with a little bit of water and then dry it off, and then the grip kind of basically comes back to as good as possible. So that's why you'll see a lot of competitions by the platform. Often people pour a little bit of water in a towel or even on the floor, so they can basically just wipe all the dirt, dust, and chalk and baby powder off the bottom of the shoe, and then come off to the side on maybe another towel or on the floor, dry it all off, so then the shoe is nice and dry and nice and sticky, and then they go on the platform and then they don't have any grip issues. As I said, you can also look into things other than just a wrestling shoe. You can look into different deadlift slippers they have out there from various brands. You can find stuff on liftinglarge.com. There's stuff from Notorious Lift. I believe A7 has new deadlift slippers out there. So lots of different options you could pick out there that you don't have to just go with a wrestling shoe. You can actually go and get a deadlift slipper that's meant for sumo deadlifting especially, that's going to have the thin sole, the very hard sole. Some of them even have a metatarsal strap like this wrestling shoe right here, and they're also going to have the very good rubber grip on the bottom. What I also like about the wrestling shoe and then those deadlift slippers, the newer ones from like Notorious Lift and A7, is that it really locks your foot inside the shoe with the basically the design of it and the metatarsal straps and everything like that. What I've noticed is some of those deadlift slippers and those ballet slippers that are very basic, just like a little sock that kind of goes over, is that you do have to wear socks as well, because you need to have the shin length socks for deadlift. And so when you have your foot in the sock, And then the sock in that deadlift slipper or the ballet slipper, oftentimes the sock itself can slide inside the slipper. So especially for sumo pullers with pushing out to the sides, sometimes their deadlift slipper or their ballet slipper, whatever they're wearing, basically slips because basically the sock is slippery inside the shoe. But if you get something like a wrestling shoe, especially if it has a higher ankle support on it like this, or if you get one of those newer deadlift slippers, then oftentimes with the metatarsal strap and then the laces and possibly the higher ankle support like this wrestling shoe, then it's not going to move inside there. So even with a really wide stance sumo pull, having the socks on inside the shoes and pushing out the sides, you're not going to get that same kind of slip than those basic deadlift slippers. All right, so like I said, the deadlift is the easiest out of the three when it comes to picking a shoe. About 99% I would say would be using a flat shoe. You want to have as thin of a sole as possible, as hard of a sole as possible, and if you are a sumo puller, then you want to make sure you have good grip as well so you're not slipping out to the sides when you are pulling. If you want to learn more about deadlifts, I also have a deadlift tips playlist that you can check out. I'll put the card for it above, and I'll also put it in the description below, and you can go check out the other tips I have on deadlifts so you can get your deadlift strength up and hit those PRs. But other than that, make sure you're doing that YouTube stuff. Like the video. If you have a friend who's wondering what kind of shoes they should be wearing for the deadlift, you can share this video with them. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. You can always comment below what topics you want to hear me discuss. I hope you're having a good day, and I'll see you next time.